Everyone. My name is Nitya, and I'm going to present about GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Ranjan for giving me the opportunity to present on a topic like this, which is one of the most talked about issues in the world today, regardless of whatever industry we are working in. Almost every day we share our personal data. In some way or the other, we are sharing, like, you book flight tickets, you make hotel reservations, and you log into, cloud media websites, purchase on Amazon, Flipkart, online portals. But have you ever wondered what happens to the data which you give on these websites? I mean, I have not wondered till now. I have not wondered. I just go up making the purchase, and then if I'm happy with the purchase, and I forget about it. But nobody wonders what happens to the data, how companies use this data for their purposes. And have companies taken your consent before even, getting the data from you? So if even, if you're wondered even 1% of it, then please welcome to the General Data Protection Regulation. If not, then this is an introduction for us, and it gives us awareness. This is only a small introduction. GDPR, or this is the acronym, General Data Protection Regulation. This acronym, I'll use the acronym instead of the entire word. Countries around the world today are, enacting laws towards the protection of personal data. And this GDPR is one such regulation. What is GDPR? One second. Now, these are the contents which I'll be covering. It's a broad overview. The context will be the W's. What is GDPR? Why did it come into place? Where did it come into place? These are the context. And then I'll discuss, the scope and the objectives and the principles on which the GDPR is based. And also how GDPR has impacted globally, all industries, and with specific reference to what implications it means for India. And yes, we'll also be discussing about the fines and the penalties which industries, companies incur in case of non-compliance to GDPR. Okay. Okay, so what is GDPR? This GDPR is a law created to protect personal data. Specifically created to protect personal data. And by personal data, we mean, you have personal information like your name, phone number, email addresses. Every day we work on these when Ranjan sir teaches us on to make tables. And then we have web-based information. Companies do ask, they can get your web depending on your IP address, and your cookie data, accept cookies. You do accept cookies when you buy something on any, or you want to, search for some project and some website. Unless you accept the cookie, the website doesn't allow you to proceed even further. And even past purchases on e-commerce sites like your Flipkart, your Amazon, and all that. And personal data also includes sensitive information like your biometrics. So when you go to get your passport issued, your retina is scanned, fingerprinting is done. So these all come under biometrics. And you have health and genetics, especially in the past 2-3 years. We've been giving a lot of information on the health data because of COVID. How many times have you got COVID? Do you have TB? Do you have previous asthma issues? There's so many data has been taken by the authorities. And there is also sensitive information like sexual orientation, political preferences. These are all sensitive information. So all these three, personal information, web-based, and sensitive information, all fall under the broad category of personal data. And GDPR is created to protect this type of personal data. It came into force in 2016 and it replaced the 1995 Data Protection Directive. And it was adopted by the European Union, specifically by the European Union, to protect the privacy rights of EU residents and citizens. Okay, it replaced the 1995 DPD. DPD is only a directive, whereas the GDPR is a regulation. A directive, the difference between the directive and the regulation is that with the directive, all the 28 European Union nations, what they were doing was they were adopting the law, but they were customizing it to their own needs. For example, France had customized certain rules in the law, whereas Germany had certain other rules. It was not uniform under the directive. And the DPD came into force when internet was in its infancy. It was just taking its baby steps. Now, technology is advanced and people have realized the importance of data privacy and security. So GDPR is now in force. Actually, there is an interesting story as to how this GDPR was adopted. There is an Austrian lawyer, Max Krems. He's a data rights activist also. He studied in the US. He's a European and he studied in the US. And in 2011, he came back to Europe. And he filed a complaint, a request to Facebook, asking for all the information that the company had on it. And Facebook, of course, did not give it to him. And they wrote it in a very, they gave a 1,200-page response as to why they cannot give the information to him. And shocked by this response, what Skrems did was he started a group called Europe versus Facebook. It is still there. It's called Europe versus Facebook. And this Facebook group, many people joined. In fact, because of his active involvement in pursuing, a lot of people supported him and they became part of the group. And this is actually considered to be one of the incidents where awareness about data protection became really, really high in the European Union, and the GDPR came into existence in 2018. It was adopted in 2016, but it officially became law on 25th May 2018. This is the scope of the GDPR. Like I said, though it is a law which is enacted in the European Union for the protection of personal data of European Union residents and citizens, but it affects businesses worldwide. So the continent is there, Europe, and we have, that's why I put arrows all over the map. Because even if you're a business sitting in Australia, you have a customer sitting in Europe, you are affected by the GDPR. GDPR will apply to you, even if you're a customer. You can be a company operating out of anywhere in the world. But if you're processing or if you are monitoring the data of any EU residents sitting wherever in the world, then the GDPR applies to you. This is the objectives of GDPR here, this slide. It's basically, there are many objectives, but I have just grouped them into 4 main objectives. One is reinforcement. The main objective is to strengthen the citizens' rights by giving them control over their personal data. Today, we don't have control over who uses our data and in what way. GDPR gives the citizens, gives the individuals their right to control their personal data. You can request your personal data from a company. You can ask them to share what information they have with you. And you can even ask them to delete some data. Suppose if they have information about your health data, you can tell them, I don't want this health data to be made public. And I don't want you to use this health data in any other format. So you can ask them to even delete that data. The second is credibility. Yes, to increase awareness of data regulation through a system of penalties. It happens everywhere. Unless there is fine and there is penalty, nothing works in the world. Even as simple as a no smoking board says fine if you smoke rupees 500 or 100. Obviously, an issue, such a huge issue like this, unless you have heavy penalties and fines, compliance is not possible. And the third objective is establishment. You're introducing new rights for EU nationals. For example, the right to portability. This was not there in the Data Protection Directive, which came in 1995. The right to portability means the citizens have the right to decide, the transfer of their data and in the format in which they want. The right to portability of personal data. All this is all about only personal data, because the GDPR deals only with personal data issues. And the fourth objective is to empower the actors involved in the data. And who are the actors involved with the data? The data subjects and the data users, both businesses as well as individuals. These are the two actors involved in the data. These are the key principles on which the General Data Protection Regulation is based. Lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. This slide is actually very self-explanatory. These are the principles on which it is based. You should have valid reasons for data processing, and you should obtain consent from data subjects, right? Nowadays, you see, you have these privacy notice when you log into some website and it says, I agree or I accept. You just click the button, there is a pop-up button coming. So companies have made it mandatory to put this I agree or I accept button on their websites for whatever reasons when you browse. Then you have accuracy, which is you have to ensure that the data collected is accurate and updated. Not only accuracy, and also specific data. You cannot collect unnecessary data from customers. For example, there was a case with H&M. If you all know H&M, the clothing store, what they did was they collected data of their employees pertaining to their sexual orientation, their health. Not only the employees' family members. That was also used. Their religion, political preferences, sexual orientation. All this was collected. And how was it collected? Through informal chats. The managers had informal chats with the employees and collected such data. And this was used for during employee appraisals. So H&M was actually fined, found to be defaulting on the GDPR compliance, and they were fined under this regulation. So unnecessary data should not be collected. You should only collect specific data and accurate data. And purpose limitation, that is what I was saying, collect and process the data for specified, explicit, and legitimate purposes. And storage limitation, again, store data only for the period necessary for data processing. After that, you have to delete the data. And accountable, you have to be accountable and responsible for the GDPR compliance. You have to be accountable for all these principles like data minimization and confidentiality also. And without consent, you cannot process data of any individual or transfer that data. So these are the key principles on which GDPR is based. The industry is most affected by GDPR. Right in the first spot is social media platforms like your Instagram, Facebook. What else is there? TikTok. There are many coming up. I only know these three. WhatsApp. It's a messaging service. They're all. This is the most affected by the GDPR compliance. Why now? Because they have to be very careful in collecting the data of their consumers. And not only collection, and without consent, they cannot use these data for any public purposes. And the second is the financial services industry, because banks and financial institutions, when you go even to open a simple account in a bank, you are giving them a lot of data about yourself, right? And in fact, most of the cyber security leaks and threats on data occur in the financial services industry. I'm sure many of you would have even experienced calls from unknown numbers coming from unknown countries, saying that, in fact, recently, a couple of weeks ago, I got a call from some number in Kosovo. I don't know from where. And they said, we are processing 4,000 ringgits of, some amount in your card, in your credit card. And I don't know how this data got leaked and how it went to Kosovo and from some number in Kosovo. This is one of the industries which is really affected by the GDPR. And e-commerce comes number 3, like Amazon, Flipkart, which use individuals' data on a vast basis. And technology sector is next, especially in India, the BPO, the IT-enabled services, they are affected by GDPR compliance. And of course, health and medical. In the past 2-3 years, health and medical industry has been collecting and processing a vast amount of patient data. So they are also use GDPR. They have to ensure that they are GDPR compliant. Apart from this, there are many other sectors. For example, the infrastructure industry, the airline industry, wherein when you book a hotel industry, when you make a booking or a reservation, they collect information about the individual's personal data, especially passport number and your phone number and everything. So there are almost all the industries are affected, but these 5 are the topmost. This is the global impact of GDPR. There is significant improvements in governance, monitoring, and strategic decision making regarding the use of consumers' personal data. Since GDPR came into force, in fact, more than 100 countries worldwide have enacted laws. Countries in South America, in Africa, everywhere. Even Canada, in fact, has brought in stringent data protection laws after the after GDPR came into force in 2018. So throughout the world, there has been an increase in awareness also. Citizen awareness has increased. And in fact, there was a survey which was done on internet security and trust in 2019, just 1 year after the GDPR was introduced. And in that survey, 63% of the respondents had believed that GDPR improved data privacy. And yes, there was also a massive increase in the reporting of breaches. What are breaches? Data leaks. Suppose if the company feels that a data has been leaked unauthorizedly, that is a breach. A data leak is called a breach. Now, the company is supposed to report that breach within 72 hours of the breach. That is the directive according to GDPR. So in fact, within 1 year of GDPR's implementation, more than 89,000 incidents were reported. In the first year itself, companies had started reporting breaches. And this is very important because if you report a breach, will the data subjects, will the consumers know that their data has been leaked and they can take action for protecting their data. The consumers have the right to know that their data has been breached. So data privacy now has become, one of the foremost things it has become one of the foremost things of concern to companies. irrespective of the industry in which they are operating. In India, as I said, this impact is being felt very heavily in IT, ITES, BPO, pharma, and healthcare industries. In fact, the outsourcing industry, it is worth more than $150 billion in India, which is 9.3% of the global GDP. And India actually also has a law, which is the IT Act 2000, but it is still not up to date and it doesn't, there are certain, the rule is called, it's not a law, I would say, it's just a rule. So companies can follow and cannot follow. It's up to them. They can customize the rule to their needs. But in the monsoon session of Parliament, it is now said that they will be tabling the data protection law. This law is going to be, everything is ready. It is going to be tabled in the monsoon session of Parliament this year. We have to see how, how forward the government takes it. And the next slide. This is the fines and penalties under GDPR. You have two tier fines, tier 1 and tier 2. In the tier 1, tier 1 fines are classified as less severe infringements. Basically, companies which don't appoint a DPO. A DPO is a data protection officer. And companies which do not keep data processing records and do not process data based on processing agreements. Now, these are, why are they called less severe infringements? Because they do not adversely affect the data privacy of any individual. It is a non-compliance. It is a non-compliance of a formal rule, but it does not negatively impact the data privacy of an individual. So they come under less severe infringements. So the penalty is first, a warning is done, the company is reprimanded, or there's a temporary or permanent ban on the processing of personal data. And again, if the company does the same thing, then GDPR enforces monetary penalties. These monetary penalties can go up to 10 million euros or 2% of the firm's worldwide annual revenue from the preceding financial year, whichever is higher. If your financial revenue is higher, you pay that fine, or 2% of your total financial revenue. 10 million European euros or 2% of your worldwide financial revenue. Whichever is higher, they have to pay that amount of fine. This is actually what scares companies. This hefty, humongous fines is what scares companies, to be more aware and to be more compliant under the GDPR regulations. And the second tier is more serious infringements, wherein businesses violate the rights of the data subjects. Like, for example, when they are not responding to your requests, you've asked somebody to cancel or to delete some information in your personal data, but that was not done. So this is basic violation of the individual's rights. So when the rights of data subjects are violated, either by not responding to their requests or using their data without their consent, when you violate basic rights, then these fall under the category of tier 2 severe infringements. And for severe infringements, there is no warning, or there is no there is no reprimand of any kind. It's straight away monetary penalties up to 20 million euros or 4% of the firm's worldwide annual revenue. So whichever is higher. And this is what companies should actually do to do a compliance checklist. And here I have mentioned the 3 largest GDPR non-compliance fines. By Amazon. Amazon was charged 746 million euros by CNPD Luxembourg. CNPD is the Data Protection Authority of Luxembourg, and they were charged 746 million euros I mean, this case is still under pending. And it's, I think, scheduled to go to court only in January 2024. And why were they charged? Because they had used, purchasers' data without their consent to target, and they had used it to target advertisements for on their websites. Second, GDPR compliance, highest non-compliance fine, obviously Meta platforms. This was in the news recently also. They were charged 405 million euros, especially for Instagram. Instagram, they had released, Instagram has many child users. It's a networking website where even small children can use Instagram. So they had released data pertaining to child users. So Instagram was filed for that, 405 million euros. And of course, Google, 90 million euros. And Google was fined by the French Data Protection Authority because they were not allowing the French citizens. They did not even give the option of I reject. There was only one option which said I accept. So people were forced to use I accept. They did not even have the option of not accepting before proceeding. So, and in fact, Google did not even, they accepted this. They accepted this, and they were fined, but I think the fine was reduced to a large extent by lobbying, but Google did accept their mistake in this case. And the next, this is the compliance checklist which companies should follow under GDPR. And this will actually ensure, ease of business and trust and credibility about businesses. So when you ensure lawlessness and transparency in data processing, and when you review your data protection policies on a regular basis, and you can even conduct an privacy assessment before even you start to process personal data, conduct an assessment on that, and implement proper data security measures. And if possible, you appoint a data protection officer in charge for all this, who will take care of data governance, data transparency, data security, and then promptly report data breaches. That is very important. And all this will create awareness, credibility, and make ease of business. Companies will find it very easy to do business in these scenarios. So GDPR, in conclusion, is the world's most strongest privacy law. And even though it was enacted in the European Union, we can see that it affects businesses worldwide, all over, and it has become mandatory for all companies wherever, irrespective of their geographical location, to ensure compliance of the general data protection regulations. Thank you. That was my last slide.
Yeah, thank you, Nitya. Yeah. Can you share the PPT once?
Yes, sir. One more time.
Just enter once.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's come.
Yeah. So my first question, as a data analyst or a data science, how much is important? Why, GDPR we are talking? When people are talking about the tools and the technique, we are talking the GDPR rule, regulation, we are understanding the concept. Question is why? And how much is important to, before, maybe you can skip any tool. Why someone should be not be skipped the GDPR rule to before starting career into data science and data analyst?
Is this a question specifically addressed to me, right?
Yeah.
Now, so GDPR has become now, it's become like a mantra for any industry, because if you don't follow the regulations under, it is basically, one thing is it covers personal data and personal data of individuals. So that is one of the foremost reasons why any industry should comply to the GDPR rules. The second one is it brings about, if you don't follow GDPR compliance, then people lose trust in your business. The business loses credibility. So without this, how can you even run a business?
Yeah. Even additionally, I want to add here, like as you are telling a data person, we are using data. GDPR rule designing, develop, create for those who are consuming the data, those who are accessing the data, they are giving unchecked. So maybe you do whatever for a reporting, analysis, prediction, whatever. If you don't know your data, you don't understand your data, how can you do whatever you are do even analysis, that is going to wrong. So this is how helping if anybody want to ask any question, because as I told you, you are a beginner of a data analysis career, data science career. The first thing before starting any role, you must have to go to the GDPR. Even additionally, all the European countries, they are a mandate, even not in India, but Europe countries, the mandate. And second thing, data governance or data quality is also the first steps before starting into data profile. So that's it is even you check to nowadays data governance and data quality is the highest paying salary in Europe country compared to any data science role that in market. So in future, going future, even we are going to share the slide for data quality and data governance. Thanks, thanks Nitya, and thanks for PPT. And any